What's up, heathens? How y'all doing? I'm the Godless Engineer, and I critically analyze apologist claims to give you the best arguments and information so that you can stand up and use your voice. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a young apologist who's going to be reacting to some atheist TikToks. Now, one of the TikToks is not really all that atheist leaning. It doesn't really discuss anything about atheism. So we're going to skip that one, which it's the first one. So I'll have the original video linked down below if you want to go and check it out and see what he has to say there. But it really doesn't have much to do with the rest of his video. So we're just going to take a look at the pertinent videos that he reacts to. And in case you guys are wondering, yes, he kind of goes off the rails into the demony bits of his theology. So I hope y'all are ready for some demony shit. If you want to fuck around and find out how demony this young apologist theology is, then please stay tuned.
Atheist TikToks. See, in this country, we have the right to believe whatever we want, just as we have the right to believe nothing. See, if you didn't know this about me, I am a devout Christian, and my faith is the most important thing in my entire life.
You know, I always find this to be sad when they say, oh, this is the most important thing in my entire life. Like, this is the paramount thing, is my faith in God. I mean, I get that some people are like that, and I'm not trying to say that he shouldn't be that way, but I always kind of feel like it's very sad, in my opinion, because, like, that's the most important. Like, you could pick anything in this life to, like, have as your paramount thing, but you're choosing God? It's always seemed, like, pretty cringe to me to, like, consider it that way. And I know when I was a Christian, I'd go into these bouts where I would do that, but it would always feel very weird and not wrong, but just I would feel off doing it. So it's perfectly fine that he's put God at the forefront of his life. I mean, me personally, I don't put atheism at the forefront of my life. Obviously, you guys are only seeing a portion of my life here. I don't put all of my life out there. If you haven't noticed, I've started wearing a lot more gaming stuff, but that's because I've been trying to do a lot more gaming lately, just on my own, which I stream sometimes over on GE Plays. If you want to, you can go to geplays.com or just search here on YouTube for Godless Engineer Plays Games and you'll be able to find me. But I've been really getting back into like playing games because that's what I really love to do. I really love to do that kind of thing. And I like movies, and I would have to say that before everything else comes from my family, like KC, my wife, Xander, my son, like all of that is important. Of course, this is important to me too. Don't get me wrong. My atheist activism is very important, but I don't consider it to be the paramount thing in my life. A lot of Christian apologists like to make the accusation that, oh, why do you make your entire personality atheism? And it's like, I don't. I'm a software engineer. I have a regular day job where I do not discuss like atheism if I can help it. Just because of the area that I'm in, everybody's religious, and I mean, I would rather just not have those arguments at work, you know? And everybody has their own thing that they like to do, like as far as work goes and talking about religion and all this other stuff. It just really organically does not come up. And I really want to keep my job, so I try not to bring it up. But my point is that I feel like the whole God being the paramount or the top or the most important thing in your life, or being a Christian is the most important thing in your life. I've always felt like that was kind of a weird thing. Not that I'm judging this guy or anything like that, or I think that he should change how he structured his life or anything. For me personally, it's kind of weird.
That being said, I would be remiss if we did not visit the other side of the argument, to hear some atheists out, to genuinely hear their points of view, and maybe, just maybe, they'll convince me, and I'll turn from my ignorant ways and then just embrace life as an atheist and say that there's absolutely nothing than this measly planet that we know. Maybe. It's a possibility. It's a low chance, but we'll see it.
See, here's a big difference between atheists and Christian apologists, is that whenever I make these videos, whenever I, engage in a discussion or whatnot, it's never my goal to convert somebody away from their faith. I really don't give a fuck if you believe in Jesus or Yahweh or anybody. Like I really don't give a fuck. And I don't care if you're convinced by my arguments or anything like that. I just feel like it's important for me to present the other side of it in a discussion. Like, I have a different opinion than you. So I feel the need to defend what I feel is the reality of the situation, like the reality of things. And so that's what I'm doing. And you don't have to be convinced by what I say or anything like that. But I am never, and I've never seen atheists out there really try to be like, this is 5 reasons why you should leave your faith for atheism. Like, I've never seen those videos. Maybe I'm just not looking for them. Maybe, they're out there and I don't have the search terms that I normally use, to find videos, that they're just not popping up in that. I don't know. But I feel like most atheists really don't give a shit if Christians are Christian. They're concerned with magical fantasies being represented as scientific concepts. Like, that's what they're concerned with. And so they don't really care if you believe in God or not. But it's always the Christian apologists that are so concerned with converting atheists. And I realize that he's not trying to convert atheists here. That's not what I'm trying to say. But his mindset is obviously in the position that I normally come to these videos with, because I come to these videos with, oh, this person's trying to change my mind about something. Because generally Christian apologists, evangelicals, whoever, they are trying to actively change my mind about it. They are trying to actively convince me about it. Whereas I am just trying to provide good information. Take it, leave it, doesn't really fucking matter to me. But it definitely seems to matter to Christian apologists as to whether or not I believe in their God. But I do want to commend this guy for, I guess, venturing out and trying to find some atheist content to consume and to challenge his views. Although I feel like the videos that he picks that are actually atheists or actually deal with some atheist claims or something like that, I feel like he's picked a very specific set of them. Some people might try to throw that my way too, like, oh, you pick low-hanging fruit too, Godless Engineer. You don't have any room to talk. And it's like, no, I pick from every level of the tree, including the low-hanging fruit. But I also go for highbrow content like William Lane Craig, or other highbrow content that people would agree, they think it's highbrow content because William Lane Craig's lowbrow content. And so they reach for like J. Warner Wallace, Frank Turek, or something like that. Or you've got these other people from like theological seminaries. I also pick from them in case you'd consider them to be highbrow. It really is just a personal opinion about it being like lowbrow kind of content. And I'm not trying to shit on the creators that he picked for the videos, but it's very obvious that he was going for easy response videos. And sometimes I do that. I admit, sometimes I pick a video because it's easy for me to respond to, but I generally try to pick some kind of challenging concept at least. And sometimes it's just, hey, I got a message for atheists. Believe in my God and suck his dick. Yeah, I do that too on occasion. So
you don't believe in God?
Which one?
What do you mean?
Well, Zeus.
Who?
Greek god. Or Ra, or Ganesh.
No, not those ones. The real one in the Bible.
Yahweh.
Just God.
Well, you know how you don't believe in all those other gods I mentioned? That's how I don't believe in yours.
How can you not believe that someone created all this, though?
Why do you believe that someone created it all?
Because it's so good. Can't just be chance, can it? What, the Big Bang? Everything came from nothing? That's impossible.
You're right. God did it.
Right.
So, where did God come from?
He's always been around.
Oh, how I do love this argument. Not really. I kind of hate it.
So I typically don't pull this argument out either. So I guess I'm right there with him. It's not that I hate the argument, it is because the argument that he's talking about is, where did God come from? But I feel like you've got to be very specific about when you use this, because typically this is brought out during like some kind of first cause kind of argument, like where, everything that comes into existence or began to exist has a cause for it. And the cause that started everything was God. So it's kind of like, well, where what caused that God? If that God exists within this reality, then something had to cause him to exist. So what caused him to exist? And so the Ricky Gervais audio there was really sort of simplifying the philosophical discussion being had. But I mean, it is a good question for a very specific argument about God. But I feel like it's only in most of the atheist arguments, in fact, are in response to bad Christian arguments or bad theist arguments or religious arguments. They're normally just in response to that. These are questions that we have. So if everything began to exist in the universe at one point or another. And God is the initial first cause, and he exists within this universe, but simultaneously outside this universe. I don't know how that happens, but whatever in the fuck. There would need to be a cause for God too. But you'll notice the shifting of the goalpost there, especially at the very end of the clip. And that's the Christians will typically say, oh, well, he's eternal. He's always been there. And it's like, oh, okay. You could just shift the goalpost then on God. I get that particular aspect of God is inherent to the Christian theology, but I feel like it's still shifting the goalpost in your argument. I mean, you're applying the argument, but you're applying the argument to a very Christian God, which has a counterintuitive aspect to this God, right? Also, another thing I like to bring up is like, why can't reality, like our reality in general, not our universe, but our reality in general, that substrate of everything that exists, why can't that just be eternal? Like, it seems like if our universe definitely had a beginning, which it did. We have the cosmic microwave background radiation, which shows us the very first instances of, the Big Bang and whatnot, or not the very first instance, but it shows us the Big Bang, the inflation of the universe. We know that our universe inflated at one time, right? And so reality, the thing that governs like everything in the universe, that can extend outside of our universe. What's to prevent that from just being eternal? Like, we know our universe isn't eternal, but reality can be eternal. So it just seems to me like reality being eternal is far more likely than a supernatural deity being eternal and existing out there. And this is primarily because reality is a natural thing. Like it's explained just by nature. So we don't need a supernatural deity in order to explain that.
See, the whole thing about this argument in particular is it's completely baseless. There is no conceivable answer you could ever get by asking this question. Where did God come from? Right there's some problems there. Number one, you're kind of assuming the role of God as a human.
No. I'm not assuming the role of God as a human. That's not what that does. I do like how this guy has identified that there's a problem with the question, because obviously in the Christian worldview, there's not an answer to that because God's eternal. But that just highlights a problem with the argument that you're using, that, there's a first cause to everything and that cause is God. It just highlights how there's a logical leap there where you're not building a bridge to the conclusion of God. You're just jumping to that conclusion. So, I mean, this guy's like right there on the edge of it. Like he's right there, but he thinks it's a fault on the atheist side and not a fault on his initial argument.
And two, do you really think that you're ever going to get an answer? Well, at least until you meet God, of course. But otherwise, no, you're not going to get an answer. There's no conceivable answer that a human being, a measly little ant in the universe, you're not going to ever get an answer.
Why not? Why can't God give us the answer? I mean, I can tell you where I came from, what caused me to happen, probably, a drunken night and some bad decisions. But, I can explain what caused me to come into existence. I can explain how cars come into existence. I can explain why universes come into existence. We can explain all of these things. God supposedly has a book that he's written where he speaks to people and he reveals things to them, even in the New Testament. Why can't God tell us where he came from? Like, I mean, maybe God doesn't know where he came from. In that case, you'd have to remain agnostic on it. But again, this is a problem with the initial argument of God caused everything to happen. Everything in this universe that exists within this universe has a cause, and that cause is God. That there's a problem in that argument that's highlighted by the question.
God is so much bigger than anything even conceivable by humans.
Okay, I don't see how this prevents us from getting an answer from God. If God's all powerful, he can definitely tell us, right?
We're like little specks of dust in the wind compared to God. We're nothing, and we always will be nothing compared to God.
See, that's a big difference between my self-image, right? My conception of humanity and everything like that, because I don't see humanity as like this little ant, this speck of dust. Well, I guess in one respect I can, because like in relation to the universe at large and how important we are in the universe, yeah, I agree with him. We're insignificant, right? But as far as on a personal level, because he's working from this idea of a personal God, that his God is personal to him. He provides personal salvation to him, and God cares for all of us and all this other shit. So in relation to that, like, I have a much better self-image than he does, because I don't find myself to be insignificant. I find myself to be very significant to a number of people in my life, to my community. Like, I don't feel the way that he does in relation to God. Of course, I don't have a God concept, so I guess that's why I don't feel like an ant. But I guess you could say that I feel this particular way in like I was saying before, in relation to the entire universe, but I don't think of the universe as God. I don't think of existence, of the entire universe as God or anything like that. So I don't see any benefit in viewing myself as, a tiny insignificant speck of dust or whatever. I don't see any significance as far as like answering these types of questions and knowing that nature is amoral. I mean, that's an answer, sure, that can give us a lot of insight into how nature works, but it doesn't give us any benefit for questions of this nature. So I don't know. I feel like this is a very demeaning and a very low self-image that he's kind of communicating here.
So asking questions like that, like, oh, where did God come from then? You think you're being smart by saying like, oh, well, the Big Bang couldn't have it because where all the particles come from. Well, how did God get there then? You're not really being as smart as you think you are. Because then you just, it just arises the question of, well, how did God get there? You don't know. I don't know. Nobody knows. Nobody knows. And we never will know until we ask God ourselves.
Okay, and I don't know, or we will never know, is a perfectly fine answer. So, the problem is highlighted by posing the question in that very specific argument, like I've been harping on this entire time. But this guy seems to be very offended by the fact that he's asked a question that he can't know and that I can't know either. But because I don't know, or I feel like I can't know, that's the reason why I'm asking the question. Because the argument being presented causes that particular question to come up. And so it's like, well, I don't know this answer. What is it? And he's like, oh, I don't fucking know. Go fucking ask God yourself. And it's like, no need to get offended. I'm just asking questions because what you're saying is fucking confusing.
Never did I think I'd ever say something like this, but they finally helped me realize how thankful we should be to the Christian God, and just please join me in thanking him. God, thank you so much for the 17-year-old freshman I met in college who was so abused by his Christian parents over being homosexual that he decided to take his own life at the age of 18. Thank you so much, God, for the thousands of children who are experiencing sexual assault at the hands of the men of the Christian church. Thank you so much, God, for the millions of good people, adults and children alike, who are dying of starvation and disease. Thank you so much, God, for the racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, and even more at the hands of Christianity, because God is good, God is in control, and God really created all of this for us. And it's so funny how Christians will try to post something as insensitive as that video and then try to pass off all the bad things in the world as free will. But free will doesn't exist if God is in control. So is God in control or not? Because y'all are really good at turning around and saying that Lil Nas X's new video is the work of the devil.
So I have to say that, I appreciated that video by that creator because it does highlight how if God is in control, then why does all this obviously bad shit happen? Like, why does he allow this bad shit to happen? Like, those are bits of suffering that just don't need to happen, right? Like, God could snap his fingers and come up with the perfect solution for those things not to exist. If God is in control, then you're admitting that God is allowing those things to happen because he thinks there's a good reason for those things to happen. Like there's a good reason for that kid to take his own life, because of how his parents treated him and everything like that. Like, there's a good reason for those things to happen. And you see, that's the big difference between me and religiously minded people that think that there's a good reason for that, is because I will never come to the position that those are good things, or that those things happen for good reasons, or that any good outcome that could come from that situation couldn't have been navigated to in some other way that doesn't include that little bit of unnecessary suffering. Like, you will never convince me of that, because the fact is that if you're an all-powerful God, if you're an all-knowing God, and if you're an omnibenevolent God, you will definitely work to figure out the best way to accomplish your goals without the need for this unnecessary suffering. So I appreciate that creator's content, that little bit of content there, because I think that they kind of nailed the hypocrisy in that particular idea of Christianity, that God is in control. I feel like in that particular respect, the problem of suffering is a pretty big problem that needs to be overcome. Sadly, though, Christian apologists, they seem to only be able to overcome that particular problem by saying, oh, well, all of that is really good, or it's done for a good reason, or we can't know what God's reason is, but we trust that it is a good reason. Things of that nature. And I just will never find myself in that position.
All right, bro, before I even get to his, bigger points, I'd just like to say Little Nas X video was the work of the devil, and so was his video right there.
A music video is the work of the devil. So you're trying to tell me that the supernatural horned evil person, I don't know if it's the job of the devil in his particular theology. I don't know if it's the devil's job to punish people or like do the torturing in hell or to burn alongside people, because there's two different ideas in different theologies of Christianity. You're trying to tell me that a supernatural horned demon dude that is magical, that could do anything, and what he did was direct a music video that people have the option to watch or not. That's what the devil did? That's what the devil does with his time. It's always so ridiculous to me when Christians say, that's the work of the devil. Like, it seems so cringy and just so ridiculous that the devil, who's busy out here doing all the evil all over the world, he takes time out to direct a Nas X video, but also that creator's video was not the work of the devil, because the devil doesn't exist. So that creator was just highlighting some hypocrisy, or maybe not hypocrisy, but a contradiction in the theology of Christianity. Because if God is in control, then he has obviously just let go of the wheel.
That was definitely the work of the devil. Now, look, people love to throw responsibility onto God's shoulders. Everything that bad ever happens in the world, it's all because of God. But yet, they'd be the first ones to say that they don't believe in God, and they don't want to even acknowledge this.
Well, yeah, that's because atheists, we don't believe in your God. But atheists aren't the ones that are saying that God is in control. Christians are the ones that are saying that God is in control. And so we're just highlighting how that doesn't make sense with the reality that we exist within. So we're pointing out a problem in your theology. And if you pull your head out of your ass for a minute, you'd be able to understand that. It's not contradictory for atheists to point out the dumbass flaws in their theology.
So then, why are you whining that God is the one behind all this?
Nobody's whining about God being behind all this. We're pointing out problems in your theology. Like, is this fucking thing on? Like, that's what we're doing. We're not whining about God being in control. This feels like a gaslighting kind of moment. I don't know if this guy's trying to do a gaslighting thing, but it feels like a gaslighting thing, because it's like, that creator's not the one that said that God was in control. That creator just pointed out a flaw in the dumbass statement that God is in control.
See, Satan has free reign on this earth. Anything bad that happens is because of Satan, not God.
Oh shit, really? I mean, I guess Isaiah 45:7 is just directly out the fucking window, isn't it? I form the light and create darkness. I make peace and create evil. I, the Lord, do all these things. So it's really Satan that's doing all that stuff, even though the Bible claims that God creates the evil. In whatever way you want to really theologically handle that, either, God's all good, and so good can't exist without evil, which good and evil and bad are all subjective terms. So obviously, if you think something is good, then you obviously have a standard for what you think could be bad or evil in this case. So, I mean, yeah, I understand that part, but God in his holy book literally says, I create evil. It's not that, oh, by being good, I create evil. He actively does good things that you can obviously tell in the Old Testament. He obviously does good things for people, but then he also does evil as fuck things. For instance, in the Jephthah story, you know, that story where Jephthah prays to God that he will deliver Israel's enemies into his hands and win for Israel and everything like that. And he'll sacrifice the first thing that runs out of his house. God knew right then that the dude's daughter was going to be the first one to run out of his house and greet daddy. But did God say shit about it? No. God's like, you're going to regret this, but okay, pinky swear and we'll rub our dicks together for it. God, that was an evil thing that God did. God knew what would happen and he allowed it to happen. He could have been like, no, that's not a good idea. I don't think you're thinking this through. How about we do something else, like sacrifice the first goat that sucks you off? That kind of thing. You could have said that, but no, God's like, okay, if you want to, but this isn't going to turn out well. God obviously creates evil. He takes credit for the evil that he creates in the Old Testament.
It is contrary and impossible to God's character to do anything, bad or evil, because he is 100% good.
And you see, it's this kind of mindset right here that causes you to think that like Numbers 31:17-18 was a good act. In case you're unaware of those passages, that's where God has ordered the Israelites to kill every single man, woman, child, infant, except for the virgin girls. He wants the Israelites to take the virgin girls as spoils of war, which essentially means sexual slavery. You're going to tell me that that's not evil. You're going to tell me that forcing young women to become the wives of Israelite men and force them to have sex and force them to have babies is not an evil thing. Like, that's a good thing. And I've heard Christian apologists go all over this earth in order to mold that into like a good action. Like, they'll say shit like, well, what were they supposed to do at that point? They were left without any of their tribes. So it's only natural that they absorb them into, the Israelite tribe. It's like, okay, that's fine from a natural perspective. I totally get that. The Israelites were savages. They killed all of these people and took the virgin girls to be forced into marriages, which is essentially, as far as our definitions go, sexual slavery. I totally get that. But they want to act like it's a good thing that the Israelites killed all of those people, including little boys, stabbing young children in the chest with knives and shit. Killing them is a good thing? Like, I will never understand that. I will never understand the apologists' need to translate God's evil actions, obviously and objectively evil actions, into something good. I'll just never understand that bullshit.
Satan has free reign on this earth. And then you get people like this who are like, all this crap that's happened, we're so like abused by God. Well, buddy, stop living a horrible life and you will look at life differently. Life will be better for you. Even if it gets worse, you'll have that peace of mind knowing, hey, I have purpose in this life and it's not going to be as bad because I have hope.
That is not what the creator of that video was complaining about. The creator of that video was not complaining about their point of view of their life or their mental state or anything like that. They were pointing out the problems with the whole idea that God is in control. I don't know what the fuck this guy is talking about at this point, because he's talking like, oh, if you just come to believe in my particular God, then you just will magically make all that bad shit go away because you'll see everything in a different light. You'll force everything, even the most horrible thing that you could think of. You'll force that to be good. And so you won't be like in despair over all the bad shit, because all the bad shit automatically turns to good shit because God's good all the time and fuck Satan. Like, that's what he's saying here, but that doesn't track to anything that the creator said. It's also quite ridiculous that the solution here for all of the evil that occurs in this world is, one, to blame Satan, and two, tell the person to become a Christian, because then it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. You won't even think about the bad shit anymore because the bad shit's really good shit. Like, that's some pretty fucked up reasoning in my opinion.
People like that are literally living without hope. You want to know why our culture is so messed up? Why so many people are going to therapy? Why, like, the doctor's offices are crowded? Because we are living in a godless culture.
Yes, we're living in a godless culture that's mostly full of Christians that believe in this dude's fucking God, and also all of, most, not all, but most of our elected officials also believe in this dude's God, but we're living in a godless culture. That's why people are getting medical care. Fuck medical care. You gotta rub dirt in it and spit in someone's eye and then lick their tongue, and that'll solve all their problems. Oh, why we got to go to therapy and get good mental health? Oh, fuck all of you. You need to rub some dirt in it and just walk that kind of mental health shit off, okay? I feel like this is coming from a very privileged position right here. This guy's rant at this point, because he's basically acting like we're living in a godless culture and our society is just shit and horrible. I'm sorry, but have you not read about previous cultures and how they are? Have you not read about current cultures and how bad some of them could be? Like, you're not persecuted there, buddy. You're not persecuted one bit. And you're not living in a godless society when it seems like most of the Christians that have been elected into office are purposely trying to push more religion onto the general population. In fact, a good number of them want a Christian theocracy. How are you living in a godless fucking society? You're not.
If God took control and was prominent again in our culture, I guarantee life would look a little bit better.
Well, in the societies where God definitely has control, life doesn't look a whole lot better. In fact, it looks a whole lot worse in those societies. Like if you go over to like Iran, Iraq, or Afghanistan, where you have like some semblances of Islamic control, where God's in control over there, it's pretty fucked up. But you don't have to look at them because, of course, that's a different religion, right? Well, you could just simply look at the various societies in the past that have been controlled by religion. You could look at the original colonies that were controlled by religion. Shit was not better then. Objectively, they were not better. Things are better now. Maybe he thinks that things aren't better for him and Christians because you have people that are not afraid to fight back against their Christo-fascism. Maybe that's it. I don't know. I don't know what this guy believes exactly, but he obviously believes he's being persecuted or silenced, or, you know, the society's being punished in some kind of way because we're allowing godless people to even exist.
It would look a lot better. And all the things that he listed there, like homophobia, xenophobia, blah, 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 blah. That is not because of God. That is because sin, ever present in our culture.
So it's kind of interesting what he did right there, because he turned the tables on it, because he said that it's not God that's doing that, when very obviously the main reasons for being homophobic or xenophobic or any of that traces, or at least has its roots in religion. But he decides to turn it around and say, oh no, it's about sin. And the sin here would be the sin of not believing in his God, the sin of not being a heterosexual person. Those things are sins to him. And so instead of admitting that his religion can be homophobic and xenophobic and all the other things that are listed, instead of admitting that his religion can be implemented that way, he turns it around and says, no, it's the LGBTQ people's fault. It's the foreign people's fault. That's fucked up.
And in that, all the crap that he just spewed out is the exact same as him staring into a camera and saying all this crap that's wrong with God. Same thing. How can you expect anything different when you're making that argument? You can't. Well,
I think that particular creator was justifiably upset. I don't see a need for chastising them for pointing out the flaws of the whole idea that God is in control. So I get that this guy just wants to repeat on loop, you can't. But I I mean, obviously, we could solve those things. We could get past those things, but religion is holding us back on those things. That's going to be it for this guy's video. He does have a little bit left, so maybe we'll do a follow-up video where we respond to his other TikToks that he covers. But if you will, please let me know what you thought down below. Do you think that he had good points about these creators, or do you think that, you know, he's a little bit off there? Let me know what you think down below. And while you're down there, why don't you smash that like button and subscribe if you like this kind of content. Don't forget to stand up and use your voice. Bye, heathens.